Good morning, everyone, and thank you for the warm welcome. It's an honor and a privilege to be the keynote speaker at the Poultry India event, which is a very prestigious event. It's my first event. First time I'm attending here is because actually I'm not from the poultry industry. And, hence when I was thinking of this presentation as to what to speak today, I said I can't really teach all the dignitaries here and the audience sitting here who are so experts in terms of policymakers, practitioners, the nitty-gritties of the industry. But I thought maybe I've been here for around 5 months into this industry. As you can see, I come from consumer businesses. Maybe I can give a very early, an outsider's perspective of what I think could be done to create value, salience and value addition in the poultry industry for the future of Viksit Bharat. And that's where broad my thought would be. Hence, I'm calling it an outsider's perspective is what my talk is going to be about. I also want to thank Dr. Sridhar. I think he's laid out the contours of what poultry industry should be doing from a policy perspective point of view very well. Thank you, Dr. Sridhar. And I think some of the points he mentioned, moves very well into some of the points I had thought of, So maybe without any delay, I'll just start with my talk. Okay, so Viksit Bharat Abhiyan, or the vision of Honorable Prime Minister Modi ji for 2047 is very well known to all of us now. These are some of the key, while there are 4 pillars as Dr. Sridhar mentioned, I picked up some 2-3 critical parameters which I think are going to be very critical for, or which are very critical aspirations for our economy, So we all know that India is poised. I mean, we are already a reasonably strong $4 trillion economy, the 4th largest economy in the world, but we have to move 8 times by 2047. Now that's a very audacious goal. So we are talking of moving to 8 times to around $35 trillion in next 20 odd years. There is a very important parameter in this which comes out which is how does India look at exports moving forward? And within that, I picked up a parameter of agri and food processing exports, which is very relevant to poultry as a sector, as poultry exports would be a very critical part of this segment. Now this is likely to go up from $50 odd billion to $700 billion. Now that's the aspiration that's again been set. And if we put these whole numbers aside, there is one factor which gets hidden among all Viksit Bharat goals. It is a very soft but very important goal of life expectancy of Indians. In any developed economy, social security, health, nutrition are very critical parameters. The value of life is very, very appreciated across all developed world. And that's a very important goal which is moving from 70 odd years of life expectancies to 85, 84 years. Now this actually may not seem a very important goal, but I can tell you this is a very important goal because it puts otherwise a very different burden on the economy of India if Indians' health is not up to the mark and up to the best in the world. In all this, to achieve this, there is a very understated small factor, which is that how healthy we are as a country. And health and nutrition really are very critical for any developed economy. So I think that's a piece which I want to deliberate a little more. Now, India as a country, if you see, we are pretty much food grain sufficient now. This is something which I think Dr. Sridhar mentioned, that from being the basket case to the bread basket of the world, we have achieved that very well over the years, that today we are in food grains. We are in food grains pretty much up there. But there is one piece which is gaining a lot of traction and which is very much known to everyone, is that India is a seriously protein deficient nation. And I understand that the first goal for any country is to make sure that the hunger goes away. And that's, I think, we have achieved pretty well. But one piece is this data that you see on the world. On an average, Indians consume around 47 grams of protein a day. And this is much lower than Asia, much lower than sub-Saharan Africa. And we have a lot of African friends sitting out here. And obviously, if you see, we are half of the US. Now, this is a very, very telling state of the data. And this is a journey which we have to cover as a country. So by 2047, if we achieve all those trillions of dollars, $35 trillion, if we don't move the needle on this protein deficiency, I don't think so we would have really qualitatively improved as a country. We wouldn't have become truly a developed nation if our health of our countrymen and fellow countrymen is not up there in the world, And I think that's the point which really is a very important point to note here. Now, if this is one of the challenges, what do? Interestingly, while this is a key driver of nutrition, the poultry sector has inherently a very good cost-effective solution also. Now, if you see, I've just plotted some of the cost per gram of proteins of some of the things which are easily available in our country. Chicken, dal, egg, fish, and milk. And India is the largest producer of milk in the world now. But if you see, Chicken is right up there, I mean, actually right down there, I would say here, in terms of cost per protein. And even eggs, they are not far off. They're right in the middle. So out of these 5 elements that I put together, 2 elements which are very cost effective actually belong to the poultry sector. Now, this is the role which poultry sector can play. That if India has to become a truly healthy developed nation and not just a developed nation, this is the solution, that both chicken and egg provide the best form and most cost-effective form of protein nutrition to us. And this is where we need to dial up really. So I think this is another piece which I wanted to point out. Now coming to a little step back, I was looking at some data and say, hey, if it's a developed country and how poultry sector has to contribute to the developed nation, then every sector has to do heavy lifting. As you said, now, every sector has to do that heavy weight lifting to contribute to the economy. There is a very interesting data of the industries I come from and a poultry sector which I tried to plot. Contribution to GDP of India of FMCG, which is all the food products, household personal care products, OTC products that we all consume every day. That's around a $220 billion industry versus poultry is around $50 billion. So FMCG is 4 times roughly the size of poultry today in India. The contribution of poultry sector today is 1% to GDP, while FMCG is 5% to GDP. Even if I take foods out of this FMCG only, foods is roughly around 45% of FMCG. It will still contribute to around 2.5-3% of contribution to GDP. So one point to note here is that poultry sector contributes 1% to our GDP today, while the foods part of FMCG contributes almost 3 times. So that again is a point to ponder why that happens. On one hand, we are the most efficient solution, but we don't seem to be contributing to the GDP of that kind. And then we want our GDP to go up by 8 times. So poultry has a lot of catch up to do. That's a very important point which comes out of this. Exports, it's just $0.1 billion. So there's hardly any contribution versus the $5 billion for FMCG. So that's another piece. And lastly, I think the last point is where my presentation will talk a lot is value addition. One thing is very clear from all the experiences that I have learned in my life as a practitioner of businesses and leading businesses is, finally, you can contribute to GDP only by creating value for the consumer and value for self. If there is no value addition, you will be a small player in GDP contribution. And that's a very telling last point, that poultry sector has less than 10% value addition in processing, through processing processed products. And I think Dr. Sridhar, you also mentioned this, that is one important piece which has to switch from wet markets to more and more of processed products. I think that's not only important from the safety, hygiene, health point of view. It's a very important point from the value addition to the GDP point of view. If you see FMCG today, it's 100% branded. There is a large part of dal, chawal, etc., which sells unbranded, but the number which I put of $220 billion is a branded part of FMCG and not the staple part of FMCG which is unbranded today. And that becomes the growth for that industry, which is you keep on converting unbranded part of the commodity to branded, and consumers will pay for that brand. So this, I think, is a very important challenge and maybe mindset shift which the poultry industry needs to do to how do I become a more value-added player in the Indian economy, while at the same time making sure that Indians have easy access to a very protein-rich diet which is readily available within the poultry sector. So what's holding the poultry sector back from creating value? Are there too many constraints that the poultry sector has? I've been here around 4-5 months. I've attended a couple of conferences. I've met a few of the industry leaders. I've obviously been interacting with our own teams across, traveling to poultry farms, etc. One thing which obviously as an outsider I see that we all have constraints. We talk a lot of constraints. I mean, and the 2 big constraints which I want to put on the table, which I can see is the bane of the industry. And then I want to talk about what beyond those constraints. So one is the constraint of foundation, which I call it. I said it's a foundational constraint to this industry, which is, we talk of, there's a huge cost volatility. I mean, we run our own breeder farms, we have integrated business, and I can see every day when I talk to Abhay that, there is some outbreak happens, some flu happens, something happens at the back end where mortality changes, where cost gets impacted, and this becomes a foundational constraint of the way the businesses are founded. Obviously, these are some of the pieces which I'm sure we can see a few other speakers, Dr. Mittal talking about it, and we really look forward to the talk, is HPI outbreaks. The number of outbreaks have gone up like crazy in the last 2 years. We can see the number of susceptible cases which have happened. I mean, the big part of this is, this leads to losses. And then the moment it leads to losses, it leads to cost going up, and it also starts impacting the demand. So there's a foundational constraint. There is a lot we can do about it. which we must do. And I'm sure many of the policymakers and the industry specialists will talk about it. So this is one piece. Now, as a practitioner, I can tell you, okay, what I do here is, how do I make my back end more and more effective is one action point. So this is one constraint. Second constraint is, which honestly, I have not been able to understand this. So in my 5 months on this large forum, let me tell you, this piece I have not understood. Because I come from places where market prices are ruled by supply chain and demand very clearly. This is a piece I'm still trying to put my head together, that why any industry would have such crazy price volatility every day. And this is something which I guess the senior suppliers of this industry have to think through very clearly, that are we really doing a serious mismatch of supply and demand for short-term gains? Because this creates its own set of volatility in the industry. And no volatile industry would ever end up creating value addition. This I can tell you. And especially if the value addition is not there, if the volatility is there at the revenue end, you will never be able to create a value addition. But this is the price volatility which is there in egg prices, which is the price volatility there is in live bird prices. Ye to aap log sab, every day you live with it. Now I said, okay, there are two constraints. One is the cost end, we can do something about it. This price end, maybe we can't do too much about it. So what should this industry do still? Should it remain as is, a 90% non-value-added industry? Then we'll be always a very small player in a GDP. So I've handled multiple sectors. I've been in multiple parts of FMCG. I have also seen a bit of telecom, although I'm not a telecom guy. But I can tell you, every sector has its unique constraints. And this is my life learning of multiple sectors. Every sector I've walked in has some constraints. Are we the only sector which faces such huge challenges? I can tell you the answer is no. Our challenges are unique, but every sector has their own problems. Our challenges are not as if we are the only people facing the wrath of God or wrath of nature in our industry. There's a very beautiful quotation which I tell the teams in GAVL, because we are a company which is trying to become more and more value-added, that finally in human beings, and I believe in this quote a lot, is we are the stories we tell ourselves. Finally, you will achieve what you tell yourself in the mind. And I think that's a message which I would leave with all of you. We are the stories we tell ourselves. If we believe we are a volatile industry, we can't do a shit about creating value addition, that's how we'll remain. Even 20 years down the line will remain like that. I think we need to take some learnings from other industries. So let me take you into a journey of a mega value creation story of a brand in a commodity sector which is as volatile as poultry. And I happened to be, while I spent 15 years in Godrej, and there are many Godrej stories also I wanted to tell, but I wouldn't have had time. I want to talk about a story which started at a very early stage of my career when I worked with this company from a management trainee to a marketing head. And I think I was lucky to witness this story and be part of this story for some time, for over a period of almost 12 years. And then I've been watching this story still continuously from strength to strength. So this is the commodity category from which a serious value addition has been created. And next 15 minutes I'll spend on this. So this is a brand which all of you have heard of. Parachute, everybody knows. It's the largest coconut oil brand in the country. So let me tell you what is this category all about. Coconut oil is as volatile a commodity in the country as it can be. It is led by domestic prices. It is led by global conditions. Coconut oil prices move. You can see in 2023, this price was 13,000 rupees a quintal. And today that price is 31,000 rupees a quintal. It goes up to 17,000, it can fall up to 13,000, it can go up to 31,000. It's crazy volatility. It is commodity. If you see below a shorter period of 20 months, this is how this price index can move. It can be 190 rupees, it can be 140 rupees, and it can go up to 200 rupees. This is what we see very often daily in our business. This is coconut oil, loose coconut oil. This is price volatile. And what Parachute does is, it sells pure coconut oil only, right? A large part. This is the story in 90s. Hindustan mein coconut oil used to sell like this. The coconut oil in 90s in India was sold, and edible oil was sold in tin cans. And this is just 35 years back story, when Mr. Harsh Mariwala decided to create the company from Bombay Oil to Marico. And I was the first batch of management trainees who joined him at that time in the late 90s. This is how India used to consume coconut oil or edible oils. Consumption was very low, because these are 1 liter cans, 5 liter cans, 2 liter cans. These are not consumer packs. These are bulk trading packs. And this is what industry was all about. But they decided that this is now how consumers will adopt. This is traded business. We want to create a brand out of it. So there are 6 things which over the time, the journey of creating a brand out of a commodity have happened. Marico they will reimagine the coconut oil category. That this is now how coconut oil should be sold in this country. The first thing is, which is important for any business which is trying to do value addition, is You will not compromise on product. Product superiority has to be unparalleled, 100% guaranteed product. Good value addition companies do not compromise on product. So the same is true for poultry. It's a business where you cannot compromise on product. In fact, your product has to be positioned as best in class. Only then consumers will pay you premium. And that is what happened. They invested behind huge amount of sourcing in the best parts, best plantations of Kerala. And that is where the journey started, saying we will make sure that there is a clear difference between this product and what is sold in cans or in tins in the country. Second interesting piece, when you want to ask consumers to pay premium, when you want to start becoming a brand, packaging and product innovation plays the biggest role. The industries have to do innovation in both product and packaging. One interesting part which is happening is when these tin cans were sold, now this parachute coconut photograph in tins, when it was sold, it was prone to rust. Why Indian wives never used to use too much of coconut oil? Tin can, when it comes home, usme jung lagta hai. It is rusted. That seal was very important, difficult to break. It can cut your hands. Housewives can't do that. So this is a problem of the industry. The industry was like this. They said, we'll shift to parachute, HDB packs, plastic packs. This is what happened in 90s. It was convenient, it was better looking, it was cheaper. But one more problem came up, which you can never imagine. This can did not do well. Why? Because when it went to stores and homes, the rats will bite onto the edges of this can and spillage will happen. A very small problem, you can't imagine this. Another innovation happened. Parachute decided to move to cylindrical bottles of packaging because rats, a small thing, rats cannot get a grip on the shoulders of the pack. Now this may look so stupid a thing to do, but this is what revolutionized the packaging. That your retailers will say, humko nahi rakhne ka hai. The shopkeepers will not keep this pack. Housewives will not buy this pack. The moment it became a cylindrical small bottle, it became a branded pack and nobody was, rats, I was there, rats were not able to bite it. Now, itna chota sa, very common idea, and that's what happened. And maybe I want to show you a campaign which happened at that time. Then, in the 90s, when I was at the helm, we did a fundamental change in what we call the brand premiumization. This packaging also went into a change after 10 years. And you see Parachute ended up becoming a very modern plastic bottle. And there's one line we started using that we have to get Parachute from bathroom to dressing room. Normally, sabhi gharo mein Parachute bottles was kept in bathrooms. We said it has to become a cosmetic brand. Can we get Parachute from bathroom to dressing room? And these small changes happened. This new logo came into place. You see in the Parachute pocket, there's a drop which got formed, which cues purity, and a tamper-proof seal came in. These are very important changes to become a personal care brand. Because then you start commanding a premium. You don't remain like a commodity. You're not prone to day-to-day variations of prices. And this has happened. And then Parachute started talking about a very fundamental shift which happened in the next piece is, first time in late 90s, we said, we will not talk nourishment. Parachute used to talk portion. We said, no, we will talk like a hair brand and we'll talk benefits. Any company which wants to move into value addition has to talk one thing to customers. You cannot talk ingredients. You have to talk benefits. It's a very simple shift. People do not buy ingredients. If you're buying ingredient, you're a commodity. If you're buying a benefit, you're a brand. And people buy benefits. They will pay for benefits. They will not pay premium from ingredients. If I'm a chicken, I'll compare myself with the wet market chicken. If I'm giving something beyond chicken as a benefit, I will not compare you with the wet market. It's a very clear theory. You compare yourself as a chicken, you will be compared to the chicken. You give me a benefit, you'll not be a chicken. There is a large part of India which still uses loose coconut oil. Aaj bhi rural India mein khula nariyal tel bikta hai. People go to the shops, they will take a katori and the local people, the lower middle class, they will buy maybe 20 ml, 30 ml, 50 ml every day, the loose coconut oil. It's still very prevalent. And that's the source to create a brand. Parachute launched at that time, first time, small pouches and sachets of coconut oil. So to convert loose coconut oil market to branded oil. Small 10 rupees bottles happen. And then you distributed them in rural areas. So that you started making yourself accessible. You made yourself affordable. Everybody can't pay for a very high 500 ml bottle. You give them 10 rupees, they will buy it. This is the rule of branding. You make products accessible to them if you want to shift from commodity to a brand. This is which happened. I'll maybe in the interest of time skip this campaign. So this is a campaign which talked about why it makes sense to buy a branded product. and it talked about value and not talked of price at all. This is a very interesting thing which we did. I want to talk about how you solve customer problems. How many people are here from North India, the winter part? One very big problem happens with coconut oil in North in winters is coconut oil freezes. वो जम जाता है, right? So one thing which happens in the chicken industry here is we have these phases in chicken that there are periods when people don't consume chicken. People don't consume eggs. I hear that a lot, that obviously there are issues when people see lean months. There was a lean month which used to happen in coconut oil. That when it freezes, in winters, coconut oil consumption goes down because oil jam jata hai. So the bottle, you can't take the oil out. And then there's a problem which happens. People have to put the bottle in a hot water tub, boil it, and then try to take a lead. It's a very painful exercise. You know, a simple answer came to that. This is what we called as parachute easy jar. Ek chaude muh ka, the jar was put where you don't have to bother about winters at all. What people used to do, they took a spoon and they will just pick a little bit of oil, frozen oil, on your hand, and you do this, the oil melts. And then you can put it in your hair. And this actually changed the consumption. Now, these are small, small ideas which can say how you can make consumption happen even in lean seasons of the year. And then there is one more piece happened. People used to say the oil is, the hair get very rough in winter seasons. I cannot apply coconut oil. They launched a product called hot oil treatment. And this is again a value addition. And I want to show this campaign for sure, how you promote usage during lean seasons. And then there are many other products which have got launched, which is Parachute Jasmine, which is a non-sticky coconut hair oil, which again people love because you are now trying to create multiple kinds of benefits. And you can do the same within chicken, you can do the same within eggs. It's a longest journey. But now nobody will compare Parachute Jasmine prices with coconut oil prices. Nobody is going to compare Parachute aloe vera prices with your daily coconut oil prices, which are going to go like this every day. And the advantage of this, people also pay premium for plain pure coconut oil of Parachute also, which still is the largest brand for them. And that is what happens. So today, Parachute is the only brand in the country in coconut oil market which reaches 5 lakh outlets. It holds 55% market share, and it is operating at a premium on pricing of 120% to coconut oil loose commodity prices. So what used to be a normal commodity in this country has today become one of the most valuable branded player in this country. 6 principles I see as an outsider of how the poultry industry can create value over a period of time and its role and its contribution to GDP of this country. First, let's start thinking consumers. Finally, we are selling it to customers. The price and value addition will come from somebody who will pay for you. Otherwise, we'll be stuck up in this daily price volatility of sometimes the cost of a live bird is 85 to 88 rupees. Sometimes the prices would be 90 bucks. Sometimes the price will be 103 rupees. Sometimes price will go down to 78 rupees. Sometimes we'll have major losses. Sometimes we'll have major profits. That is now how brands are built. That way, you will be just a commodity player and will never become a value-added player in this country. Please innovate for the customer. Think ideas. Think what does the customer want? How can you give a chicken in a way they want it? Very big thing. Invest in building of the category. Otherwise, this is where we are. We'll remain here even 10 years down the line. Category development takes time. It took 30 years to be here for coconut oil. And learn from mistakes. We all will make mistakes. Move fast and stay the course. That Confucius quote is very important. If you are planting for a generation, please transfer knowledge. Same is true for category creation. If you want to build brands, if you want to create value addition, if you want to contribute health and nutrition to the economy, please stay patient, but start looking at it from a different lens. This is another story. This is where I am now. I want to leave one thought with you. Makhana or fox nuts, इससे सस्ता commodity इस देश में नहीं हो सकता. There can't be a commodity which is as basic as makhanas. While the poultry industry watches, there is a story which has started in India, that the makhana, which is a basic makhana, is on its way to become branded superfood of the world. Today, this industry is slated to become a 10,000 to 12,000 crore industry in next 3 to 4 years. What is getting branded? Makhana, foxnut. Chicken is not as bad a commodity as makhana is. It is basic. And today, many of us, these are companies which are trying to brand it through roasted makhana, through flavored makhana, through this health benefits of makhana. What all we need to do? This industry, I would be surprised if 5 years down the line, if I'm on this forum, I'll be presenting the case study how makhana ended up becoming from basic makhana to a global superfood. Now this is what a basic commodity can do. So let's wait and watch. But this industry started. So I think that's a message I want to live. If you want to genuinely transform India's health, if you genuinely want to create a value addition for consumers, we want to genuinely create a value addition for our businesses, it's time for our live birds to become brands. And that's it from me. I think a different outsider perspective. Thank you.